Hello, my name is Ramzi. I work for Carers Trust, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about the Care Act and your right under the Care Act. I'll also be touching on the rights of young carers under the Children's and Families Act. So just a little bit about Carers Trust. Carers Trust are a national charity, and we work for, with, and about carers. We work to improve support, services, and recognition for anyone living with the challenges of being an unpaid carer. We work through local carer support organisations, such as Carer Support Bristol and South Gloucestershire, and collectively, local carer support organisations affiliated to Carers Trust supported nearly 500,000 unpaid carers last year. I'm part of the policy team. And we work to influence national stakeholders and work with them to ensure the voice of carers and the needs of carers shape policy and practice. So the Care Act and the Children's and Families Act, they're formally known as the Care Act 2014 and the Children's and Families Act 2014, but you don't need to worry about that. They came into force in April 2015, so they've been in force for about 5 years now. Before the Care Act, carers did have legal rights, but they were covered by laws that were very complex, confusing, piecemeal, and carers really weren't getting the support they needed. Carers, for example, had to prove that they provided regular and substantial amounts of care, and young carers, so that's carers under the age of 18, had no specific rights. A little bit about the Care Act and what the sort of main driving forces are. There's a duty to prevent the escalation of needs, including for carers. And just before I sort of proceed, a duty is something that a council has to do. It is legally obliged to do that. So when the Care Act talks about a duty to prevent the escalation of needs, it means the council are legally obliged to stop the needs of carers from developing. The councils also have a duty to provide information, advice and advocacy, including specifically to meet the needs of unpaid carers. Carers are entitled to an assessment based on the appearance of needs. I will cover carers assessments and prevention and wellbeing in a bit more detail later on. The Care Act set out national eligibility criteria for support. The Care Act also established a duty for councils to establish a care market and promote quality of provision of services. Unpaid carers should get a support plan if they're entitled to support and be consulted on those care and support plans. Young carers aged 16 and 17 are entitled to what's called transitional support or transition support, and that's just support from when they are moving from children's services to adult services. And the Care Act also says that services should adopt what's called a whole family approach, which means services should work with the whole family to ensure that everyone who needs it is supported. A bit about young carers. They're covered. Their rights are covered in the Children's and Families Act. Identification of a child carrying out caring role constitutes the appearance of need, and that should trigger a young carer's assessment. And then it doesn't matter who the young carer is caring for. We know a lot of young carers look after parents with additional needs, but we also know that a lot of young carers also provide support for siblings who are disabled or have other additional needs. The two pieces of legislation, so the Care Act and the Children's and Families Act, should work together to make sure that young carers aren't providing inappropriate amounts of care. In terms of the Care Act, Carers Trust think that this was a positive step forward for carers' rights. It put carers on an equal legal footing to the people they care for. It streamlined a lot of piecemeal and complicated legislation into one act, one sort of piece of legislation, and it gave young carers rights for the first time in law. Where we think that it has fallen short is through funding. So we know that local authorities are facing really difficult financial decisions at the moment, and Carers Trust have long been calling for proper funding for social care to make sure that local authorities can have the money that they need to fulfil their duties and fulfil the potential of the Care Act. And it's been a long running policy ask, and we think that national government need to ensure that local authorities and local government and local services have the money they need to make sure that support is in place for carers. So what does a carers assessment mean? A carers assessment is an assessment of your needs as a carer. It's not about how good you are at caring. It's about what support you need to help support you in your caring role. It should be pointed out at this point that the amount of care that you provide should be a choice for you, as well as the type of care that you provide. It should be a choice that you can make and control. We know that isn't always the case, and we know that you care for someone because you love them and because that's what you do. But actually, under a carers assessment, you can discuss the level of care and support that you want to provide. The carers, as I said, the carers assessment is about your needs as a carer, and it can be done jointly with the person you care for, or you can choose to do it on your own. A carers assessment can be carried out by the council or an organisation working on behalf of the council. So I don't know what the situation is in the local area, but often councils will ask or commission other organisations to do the assessments themselves on their behalf. If you are eligible for support, the council must then ensure you get that support. So you are entitled to an assessment, and depending on what the assessment finds, if you are eligible for support, that support must be provided. A really key concept in the Care Act is prevention. As I said earlier, the council have a duty to prevent needs from escalating, and actually that's really key to making the Care Act work. So what prevention really means is putting in support and services as early as possible to make sure that your needs or the needs of carers do not escalate. And actually, there's a real advantage of doing that for councils. It means that they can support you and prevent your needs from escalating, which means that later down the line they don't need to provide crisis support, which is a lot more expensive and a lot more intensive. So actually, prevention should be really good news for the council as well. It's a shift away from crisis management, because what prevention should do is prevent the crisis from developing in the first place. And what the Care Act does is it recognises the vital role carers play in supporting people with care and support needs, and it recognises that by supporting you as carers, you can then care for as long as you want to care, and that they've recognised that by supporting you, they are helping you to care for the person that you do care for. There's also an emphasis on wellbeing within the Care Act, and that covers both physical and mental health. And again, your carers assessment can make recommendations about how to best support you to maintain your well-being. It also talks about carers having control over their everyday life, and that includes things like participation in work, education or training. So if that's what you want to do, if you do want to balance your caring role with work or with education or with training, talk to someone about that, and there should be support put in place to enable you to do that. And again, the Care Act was, and as part of the wellbeing principle, it was an important shift from providing services to meeting needs. So previously the services were sort of there, and the onus was on carers to access those services. What the Care Act says is actually the services should be there to meet the needs of carers, and the support available to you should be shaped by your needs. So as I said earlier, we know that many local authorities are facing really tough financial decisions, and that your rights aren't always fulfilled. So what do you do if that happens? There's a few things you can do. You can appeal. So if you don't agree with the outcome of the assessment, you can contact the council or the organisation who completed the assessment, and have a conversation about that. You can complain if the appeal doesn't go, doesn't satisfy you. You can complain. So we'll have a complaints procedure, which obviously you'd have to follow. If after complaining to the council you're still not satisfied, and the situation hasn't been resolved, you can go to the local government ombudsman. The local government ombudsman is there to hear about sort of complaints. One thing about that is that you would have had to have gone through the whole council complaints process, and you have to go to the local government ombudsman within a year of finding out about the issue you want to raise. The other thing you can do is to contact your councillor or local MP. You can find them on the internet if you search for theyworkforyou.com, or the Parliament website. It's easy to still find out who your local MP or councillor is, and you can raise the issue with them. If you'd like any help or support in writing to your councillor or MP, please do get in touch. My email is rsulaiman@carers.org. I'll ask that to be circulated as well, but please do get in touch, and I'll be happy to help you to write that. The other two things you can do is sort of get involved in the local area. There's lots of carers forums, there's Health Watch, there's patient participation groups as part of GP surgeries, where you can be involved in developing local action, local policies. And lastly, you can campaign. So I'm a really big advocate of getting carers involved in campaigning and getting your voice heard. So those are some of the things you can do. If you do want to get in touch with me, please do. Again, I'll ask for my email address to be circulated, but it's rsulaiman, so rsuleiman @carers.org. Right, thank you very much for listening. I hope you're having a good Carers' Rights Day. And if you do want to get in touch, please do. Thank you.